RPMbassy. Today we're just going to be doing a little quick one. We're going to be looking at the Linkin Park 20th anniversary Meteora release. So this is a sort of special edition release they did last year. It's a 4-disc set. There is, I think, a slightly larger set which has like DVDs and CDs and all kinds of other bits and pieces, but I just went for this one just because price-wise it worked and it kind of had the things I want, which was mainly just the Meteora album itself. In terms of the bits and pieces that we've got on here, we've got obviously the album, of course. We've also got 2 discs of LPU rarities, so that's the Linkin Park Underground stuff. They sort of ran like a fan club, which was basically like a infrequent set of releases that members got given. I think they went up to like sort of 10 or 11 towards the end of their kind of recording span. They had some weird silly stuff in there. It was kind of like almost like a B-side depository almost, but yeah, they've kind of collected them on here, and there's some B-sides, some demos, that sort of stuff, some of which is pretty cool, some of which are just kind of there, and then they've got a live rarities 2003 to 2004 record to finish off the set. I will debate the rarity of it because one of them is Rock Am Ring 2004, which I'm pretty sure is a fairly accessible performance of theirs, but the other ones, they're from Linkin Park Underground tours and a couple of other ones, Project Revolution, that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, it's a nice set of different bits and pieces to have. But yeah, we'll just go through the sort of individual bits and pieces and yeah, just have a quick chat about them really. So the album itself, the main event, as I mentioned, this is, I would say, up there with Hybrid Theory in terms of fantastic albums. Obviously I mentioned in the top 20 list, I think Hybrid Theory is number 1 actually, thinking about it. This is a fantastic album as well. I didn't have it at the time that we did that. I think now, if we went back and did the list again, this potentially could be a toss-up as to whether or not this or Hybrid Theory was the one that took that spot. Hybrid Theory for me was very impressive just because it was a debut album, and the fact that like a band, granted, who had like been around for a few years prior, but to have a debut album that well polished, that well put together, is genuinely like astounding and fantastic. But this, as far as the compositional aspect and the writing aspect, lyrical aspect, I think is slightly stronger. I think this kind of probably has a higher consistency than Hybrid Theory does. So Hybrid Theory potentially has some higher peaks, but also maybe some lower valleys, if you will. Songs on here, I mean, I'll just go through the sort of track list. Forward, that's just an intro. That is the one thing that I will say is a bit of a downside, just that they list an intro as a single track when it's only about 15 seconds long. But you jump into Don't Stay, Somewhere I Belong, other bits and pieces. You've got Breaking the Habit, From the Inside, obviously Numb, which is like a huge song for them, and it's kind of a meme almost in a way. All fantastic tracks. You've got the Joe Hahn DJ mix song towards the end, in this case Session, which is a really, really fantastic track. Pretty much everything on this album, like you sort of like a good 2/3 of it got a single release and had music videos for them. From the Inside, Numb, Breaking the Habit, Faint, Somewhere I Belong. Like, I mean, it's obviously a strong album if they can do that in the first place. You know, some bands definitely use album tracks as like a dumping ground for stuff that didn't quite make the cut to be released properly. But I remember reading or watching, in fact, a video of them in the studio, and I think they actually went back and redid a lot of it because they weren't happy with it, and they sort of wanted to make sure that everything was as perfect as it could be. And yeah, it really does kind of show. This is a fantastically put together album in terms of the flow, and like I said, the lyrical content. There's some quite dark bits and pieces. There's some very good rapped pieces by Mike Shinoda. You know, as far as like new metal goes, this is on another level when you compare it to the kind of other ilk that was out there. I think Linkin Park and Deftones, they kind of sit in their own kind of echelon, just in terms of slightly more artistry, less about like the teenage aggression kind of vibe to it. So yeah, this is a fantastic album in that regard. As for the bits and pieces inside the album, obviously you've got the album itself. There is also a sort of liner notes section, which you've got the lyrics and vocals of the songs. You've also got individual notes for different tracks, sort of the don't know if you can see there, but kind of the summation of the songs, how they came about, that sort of thing, which is really cool. That's a fantastic option to have in an album, and I'm sure John would love those sorts of bits and pieces actually. You've got thanks and stuff from the band as well. As for the other bits, you've got the B-sides album here, or the rarities album. You've got the graffiti kind of motif that was kind of in keeping with the rest of the album. It is a gatefold, and you've just got some more kind of graffiti-ish bits, as you can see there. As far as the discs themselves, none of these are coloured vinyl. They're all just regular black vinyl, so I won't take them out to show them off. And then you've got the live rarities there as well. Good choice of tracks as well. It's kind of like a best of what they would have had as a best of at the time, almost. So you've got Lying From You, From the Inside, Easier to Run, obviously they're tracks from Meteora, Step Up and My December, which were B-sides from Hybrid 3, fantastic tracks actually. And then side 2 you've got Crawling, Breaking the Habit, medley with Step Up, Nobody's Listening and It's Going Down. It's Going Down is like the Executioner's song, the one that's got like Wayne Static in it and stuff. Wish, which is a Nine Inch Nails song I think, and then One Step Closer with John Davis from Korn. So that kind of goes alongside the version that was on Reanimation, the remixed version where he has sort of like a vocal feature towards the end of the track. So it's kind of cool to have a live version of that. As far as the B-side tracks go, the rarities tracks, there are definitely some that are weaker than others. Like Rhinoceros is a 2002 demo, that's on side 4. That I can see why that was kept off of any official release, but then just after that you've got Attached. That's the final track on the sort of rarity set, and Attached is fantastic. I mean, that could be in any sort of like film set in like like North American suburbia or something like that. It's got a real kind of moody, grimy vibe to it, but yeah, like that's a banging track. There's a couple of demos from songs that made it to the album, so you've got stuff like Pretty Birdie, which is a Somewhere I Belong demo. The intro is basically identical just because that's a sampled bit. I think it's like guitar chords that are then reversed, but that sounds great. You've got Faint, Figure 9, Breaking the Habit. They're all different demos there. With a lot of these demos, because so much of their work is kind of sample based in terms of the sort of foundation of the song, they're actually incredibly close to like finished tracks. You know, other bands would potentially have just put these out as they were because they are really, really well polished. So while there are a couple of weaker tracks in here, like in the grand scheme of things, the tracks that are on this rarity selection are really worth a listen, just to see like where they changed stuff up and like where songs started off from. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I just kind of wanted to give a brief rundown of what the album is, how it looks, what you get with it, the 4 discs, etc, etc. As I said, this isn't the kind of top end deluxe version, but it's still a really nice collection to have. You can still pick it up in some places. It's kind of like limited edition, but they probably made like an absolute load of pressings of it. So I've definitely seen some like floating around on stores online and stuff where they're not out of stock. So if you hunt it down, you can probably still pick it up. Obviously it's on streaming and stuff as well, so if you just want to check the tracks out, especially like the B-sides, you're just a little bit curious, I mean, that's perfectly accessible for anyone really. And like, as far as I'm aware, the Linkin Park Underground stuff kind of was online from the day they were released, every single time they brought a new one out. So they're not exactly hidden. You know, they call them rare tracks. They're rare in the sense that this is the first kind of wide public release, but in the grand scheme of things, you could have gotten hold of them whenever you wanted. So if you want to hunt the stuff down, you absolutely can. Like, it's all out there, and if you want to get a copy of the record, then that's also out there. You just have to hunt a little bit more, but it shouldn't take you too long. It's not the cheapest thing in the world, but it's a really nice collection to have, and hopefully they keep doing these sorts of larger releases as they go forward. I'd like to see the other albums get this sort of treatment slowly but surely. Granted, this one I think was the kind of pinnacle of them, but I'd still like to pick up the other ones. You know, it's a nice kind of album collection to have, and then if eventually they do that, then I can one day do a 5 diamonds and a dud. We can probably work out where the duds would be in there. But yeah, that's kind of it. Let me know your thoughts on the album if you listen to it, thoughts on the collection if you own it, and anything you'd like to see from Linkin Park, anything you think they should have included on here that didn't get included, those sorts of things. And other than that, that's about it. We'll see you next time. Cheers.